Can everyone hear me? Presume so. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Harold Paisner, and as chairman of the Institute for Jewish Policy Research and the senior partner of Berwin Leighton Paisner, it gives me double pleasure to welcome our distinguished and learned Chief Rabbi Lord Sachs, and of course all of you, to this evening's Morris and Manja Leigh Memorial Lecture. It is, of course, a real privilege to hear the Chief Rabbi speak, and we're deeply grateful and honored that he's with us tonight. As a research institute and think tank, the Chief Rabbi's writings are a major source of inspiration and insight for us. It may be trite to say so, but these are troubled times. There is growing disquiet both here in Britain, in Israel itself, and throughout the diaspora. We may well be in danger of losing, as you, Chief Rabbi, have so aptly put it, the dignity of difference. So we eagerly look forward to hearing from you on the key challenges facing the Jewish people. And you haven't come here to listen to me, so without any more ado, I have great pleasure in handing over to Howard Leigh, who is Morris Leigh's grandson, and who will be chairing tonight's proceedings. Can I just remind you before I hand over to Howard, please turn off your mobiles or any other mechanical devices, alarms, that sort of thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Harold, and thank you and your partners for this very kind gift of the room tonight and for all you do, not just for JPR, but for our community. Thank you also to everyone at JPR, and in particular Judith, for arranging tonight and putting in a lot of hard work to make sure it's such a success. This is, in fact, the 9th lecture in the series, which is held to commemorate Morris, my grandfather, and Manja Leigh, and I'm delighted to see my brother and cousins and Bill, Manja's son, and other members of the family in the room. Manja and Morris were patrons for JPR for over 20 years, Morris until his death in 96 and Manja in 2003. Morris was a businessman and a philanthropist. He started a furniture making business called Sterling Furniture, which became a household name in the 30s and 40s. After the war, he joined the Allied Control Commission to advise the British government on the German timber industry. Having built so much furniture that there was nowhere to put it, he started a house building industry. And he became chairman of Allied London Properties until his retirement at age 86, where promptly at the age of 87, he started his last private property business. I remember distinctly him taking me out for lunch when he was 87 and asking for my advice, because he'd gone into a new office and he'd been offered a 3-year lease or a 6-year lease, and he wasn't quite sure which to take. He was awarded an honorary degree by Tel Aviv University and later an honorary PhD. Manja was born in Berlin and came to England in 1936. She was a very successful music promoter and a very talented pianist in her own right. She took a particular interest in supporting the careers of young musicians, and in 1987 became an honorary fellow of the Royal College of Music. They both devoted much of their time to many charities, but had a particular relationship with what was then called the Institute of Jewish Affairs, a marvelous name, but wisely changed to JPR a short time ago. Morris served on the Institute's executive committee, and I distinctly remember Morris telling me that of all the many charities he supported, he felt that JPR was the most important. They came to a number of lectures, and it was Manja's idea that this lecture series was endowed in memory of Morris, and it's appropriate that we pay tribute to them in this way. It gives me particular pleasure to introduce our extremely distinguished guest speaker. There aren't many people in the Jewish community who one can genuinely say that the speaker needs no introduction, but there are one or two notes that I have to remind you of his distinguished career. Lord Jonathan Sachs has been Chief Rabbi of the United Hebrew Congregations, to give him his full title, of the Commonwealth since September 1891, as the 6th person in that post. Prior to that, Rabbi Sachs was the principal of Jews College, as well as the Rabbi of Golders Green, and then Marble Arch. Educated at Cambridge, where he obtained a first in philosophy, Lord Sachs pursued postgraduate studies at New College, Oxford, and King's College, London, where he was awarded a PhD in 1981, and then rabbinic ordination from Drew's College. The Chief Rabbi has been a visiting professor at several universities in the UK, in the US, and Israel, and is currently visiting professor of theology at King's College, London. He holds a large number of honorary degrees, including a Doctor of Divinity, conferred to mark his first 10 years in office by the Archbishop of Canterbury. The Chief Rabbi received the Jerusalem Prize in 1995 for his contribution to diaspora Jewish life and was knighted by Her Majesty the Queen in 2005, and then made a life peer and took his seat in the House of Lords as recently as October 2009, where he sits on the crossbenches as Baron Sachs of Aldgate in the City of London. He's a frequent contributor to radio, television, and national press, and I'm sure all of us in the room have listened and enjoyed to his regular contributions to the Today programme, where he's in danger of being nominated by the media as a national treasure. He is a prolific author, and many of his books have been translated into French, Italian, Dutch, German, even into Korean, as well as Hebrew. He has kindly agreed to take questions after his lecture, and the JPR have asked that the questions that you may have are related to the lecture. So if you have come with a burning question on your mind as to whether or not turbot is kosher in June, could you please refrain from that for another occasion, and we will restrict the questions, if we may, to the lecture. The title of his lecture tonight is "The Key Challenges Facing the Jewish People." The Chief Rabbi.
Thank you. Howard, Harold, friends, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. And Howard, you've provided me with a perfect working definition of faith. That is faith when you expect a Jewish audience to ask strictly relevant questions. But may I first of all just say what a privilege I regard it to be able to meet with you, the JPR, to thank you, Howard, for chairing this evening, Harold for chairing JPR, and may I wish John Boyd and the team every success. They're a wonderful organization, very important for us to be informed about our present and our future in a rational and research-based way, and therefore may I wish you continued success in all the work of the JPR. May I also say what an honor and a genuinely humbling honor it is to be able just to say a few words in memory of the late Morris and Manja Leigh. You know, Morris was such a lovely human being. I didn't know about his business career. I just knew him to be kind, wise, gentle, generous on an immense scale. And I just found him, I don't know what the correct English word is, I found him edel, a true gentleman. You know, the Hebrew language has been around for a very long time, 4,000 years, probably the oldest still continuously spoken language anywhere in the world. And yet in all those 4,000 years, would it surprise you that there is no Hebrew word that means tact? If you tell an Israeli this, they say, bivrit, tact, you know. Would it equally surprise you that there is no Hebrew word to this day for understatement? But Morris was understated. He just was. He did so much, but sought so little honor for it, so little attention. He was a wonderful, wonderful man. I dearly loved him. And the first time we met, he told me of how, as a child of 8, he had been in the choir in Egerton Road Shul in Stamford Hill, and how much those memories, that love of Judaism and its traditions and its music, stayed with him. And he was just wonderful. And of course, Manja was gracious, warm, incredibly cultured, incredibly human at the same time, with a lovely, gracious smile that lit up the room whenever she was there. And to be able just simply to pay a brief tribute to the memory of two remarkable people by whom we were so blessed.